It is NBA Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of you are having a phenomenal week. NBA Finals about to be in session. NBA draft right around the corner, but NBA offseason is certainly heating up. So too are the latest NBA news and rumors. So without further ado, let's break down everything that's hot on the NBA streets. We start off with Rudy Gobert. Is he going to get traded by the Utah Jazz? And are the Jazz going to blow it up this offseason and move on from head coach Quin Snyder, who we'll talk about a little bit later, as well as Donovan Mitchell, who we'll also talk about on today's show? First, let's focus in on Rudy Gobert, because the rumors here are certainly sizzling. According to Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report, the Jazz are weighing trade possibilities for the three-time Defensive Player of the Year. The Raptors, seen as one of the top destinations for Rudy Gobert. And can you imagine him and his length joining forces with some of the other long and athletic players on this Raptors roster, a Raptors team that does a great job defensively? Rudy Gobert would make the Toronto Raptors even more lethal on the defensive side of the floor. Now, if they were to trade for Rudy Gobert, they'd have to give a pretty good asset to the Utah Jazz. That could be in the form of OG Anunoby as part of the trade package amid recent rumors, and according to reports out there, OG Anunoby could be dealt as well. Now, you'd have to make contracts match, because those are the rules at the NBA level. And for Gobert, he's an expensive player who's still at the peak of his powers in his prime. Very, very expensive, though, as I alluded to. This upcoming year, on the books for a base salary of $38 million. Then it goes up to $41 million, nearly $44 million, and $46.5 million in the final year of his deal, 2025-2026. OG Anunoby did sign a contract extension recently with the Toronto Raptors, but he is not as expensive as Gobert, so you need to find another player to add into the trade in order to make the dollars work. But if you're getting OG Anunoby at this price tag of $17+ million, 18.5 the following year, then that player option of less than 20, considering the growth that we've seen take place from OG Anunoby and how he impacts games offensively and defensively, that's really good value for a young and ascending player who's an excellent athlete right now. As for Rudy Gobert, he's a very good two-way player and one of the best defensive players of this generation. Last year with Utah, 15.5 points per game, almost 15 rebounds. We know that he's a great rim protector and a shot blocker at 2 blocks per game off the pick and roll, operates seamlessly in a little two-man action, and he connects on about 71% of his field goals because he primarily puts the biscuit in the basket right around the rim. He's not a great free throw shooter, so he can be a little bit of a liability late in the game, and he's not a good three-point shooter, but he's able to make up for that with his defensive acumen. As for OG Anunoby, we've seen a lot of growth take place over the last 2 years. First 3 years in the NBA, he was only getting about 23 minutes per game over those first 3 years. And the numbers were solid, but not great by any means. But last year and the year before that, the numbers have started to be very, very good. First 3 years, less than 8 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, about 3 3-point attempts per night, and he connected on about 36.5% of those throws. Last 2 years, though, check out the growth that we've seen transpire for OG Anunoby. This goes to show you he's been working on his offensive craft, man, and he's a really good defensive player too because of the length and the juice. 16.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds. He's become a more confident shooter, as evidenced by the 3-point attempts at 6.5. And even though he's been chucking up more threes, the 3-point numbers have gone up to nearly 38%. Utah's perimeter defense has been awful. That's a big reason why they failed to make it to the Western Conference Finals with this current iteration of Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and Quinn Snyder as the head coach. OG Anunoby would immediately allow Utah to improve their perimeter defense. Of course, your back line and your front court would certainly take a hit by losing Gobert, but offensively, you get a guy who can knock down some threes, put the ball on the deck, and give you really good wing defense. It's a pretty good asset to get back if Rudy Gobert is disgruntled enough to demand a trade. If you had to pick a player on your team to grow your roster with, who are you going with? Rudy Gobert, OG Anunoby, RG for Gobert, the 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, or the upstart OG Anunoby? Let me know in the comment section right now. As for Quinn Snyder, the head coach for the Utah Jazz, is he going to get canned? Is he going to move on? According to Adrian Wojnarowski, his future unclear right now in Utah as the Jazz weigh their options, and they realistically could look to blow it up, or maybe they just run it back with everybody, and this is the final year for Utah to try to get it right. More from Woj on Quinn Snyder, one of the best coaches in the NBA. After weeks of conversations with ownership and management, Utah Jazz coach Quinn Snyder's future remains unclear, and a possibility exists that he could decide to end his 8-year tenure with the franchise, sources told ESPN. While talks are described as good faith attempts at a resolution that will keep Snyder in Utah, discussions with owner Ryan Smith and CEO of basketball operations Danny Ainge have yet to secure the coach's return for next year, sources said. Quinn Snyder is one of the best coaches in the NBA. For the player development that's taken place within that franchise, the growth, him maximizing the talent on the roster, and the fact that they're a consistent playoff performer. In 8 years, he's won about 59% of his games. The Jazz have made the playoffs the last 6 years, which is impressive to do in a small market and a team that doesn't spend wildly in NBA free agency. He's had a lot of success in a smaller NBA market, as I talked about, and I think that's really impressive. Now, in the playoffs, there have been some shortcomings too, but he's made some solid in-game and in-series adjustments. I just think that the roster is a little bit flawed. You might look at the 21-30 playoff record and be a little bit concerned, and the fact that the Jazz haven't made it to the conference finals, they've come up short, there's no question about that, but as a basketball coach, Quinn Snyder is really good. Now, we'll see if he comes back. Still to come on today's show, we're going to get to the latest on Donovan Mitchell. Is he going to get moved? And which teams exactly are interested in DeAndre Ayton, one of the best free agents in this class? We'll get to that coming up around the corner, but first, I want to hear from you in the comments section on Rumble, on YouTube. Will the Jazz blow it up? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. We shift gears now to Donovan Mitchell. Is the Spider going to be on the move? According to NBA League sources, Miami named as a smart trade destination for D-Mitch. Miami does have some trade assets if they want to make this trade come to fruition. Tyler Hero and first-round picks consecutively all the way from 2024 through 2026. You have Duncan Robinson as well and some young players on that team. D-Mitch, like Rudy Gobert, also pretty expensive. After signing that contract extension, 3 years, $98 million left on that deal. Donovan Mitchell, one of the best young offensive players in the game. If he wants to be considered a great player and one of the best players in the NBA, has to be better defensively. He is a sieve on that end of the floor, but offensively, there are no questions, especially with his ability to rise up to the occasion, answer the call, answer the bell, and come through in the guts of the game with some really masterful and marvelous playoff performances. And he's also gotten better each and every year. 2018-19, he really started to make some noise as a great offensive player, 24 points per game. The shooting splits have also gotten better and better year in, year out pretty much. Offense is not a question for Donovan Mitchell at all. This past year, 25.5 points per game, 5+ dimes. He is a ball-centric guard. He is not the point guard that you want who is going to be a facilitator, but if you need a bucket, he is a threat to put the biscuit in the basket as soon as he crosses half court. Where do you think he ranks among all players in the NBA? I don't think he's a top 10 guy. Does he have the potential to be that? Maybe, but where is he among all players in the NBA? Fill in the blank for me. Now we go to DeAndre Ayton. The decision looming for DeAndre Ayton. Is he going to go back to the Phoenix Suns? And are they going to try to run it back with one of the best young big men in the NBA? Or is DeAndre Ayton frustrated with how things have transpired in the desert because the Suns never offered him that contract extension when he's eligible last year? Then he refused to go into the game during that Game 7 blowout when Luka Doncic was the Phoenix Suns' daddy. Teams with money to spend on DeAndre Ayton in free agency. There are a few of them that have the cash available who are strapped with the Brinks truck to blow away DeAndre Ayton with a big offer. Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers, Orlando Magic, and the San Antonio Spurs. Those are the teams who can offer DeAndre Ayton that max contract that Phoenix did not give him. And can you imagine if you don't get anything back for Ayton as a former first-round pick? That'd be a big L for Phoenix, especially because they're in a win-now mode with this current window. The other reported interested teams, these are teams that are showing interest in DeAndre Ayton. Hornets and the Blazers. You give Damian Lillard, Ayton, it's a really good big on that team. You give LaMelo Ball, DeAndre Ayton, and I think his numbers even better than what he put up last year. You're like, okay, he played with Chris Paul. What? he would be asked to do a little bit more with Charlotte, so I think his numbers would be a little bit more inflated. Last year with Phoenix, 17 points per game, playing alongside Chris Paul and Devin Booker, so he didn't get as many ample offensive opportunities. A walking double-double, night in, night out. He has to be a better defensive player, in my opinion, and be more engaged, because sometimes he gets lost there. A block per game, considering his athleticism, isn't good enough for me. He has grown his offensive game a little bit, and he's added a jump shot to his game from about the free throw line, a little bit of baseline J's, and some three-pointers. I'd like to see him do that a little bit more because it makes him a little bit more dangerous. If you add in handle to his game, DeAndre Ayton, he could be a problem in the league. What is the best team for Ayton? I want to hear from you on YouTube as well as Rumble once more. Give me the best destination for DeAndre Ayton in the comment section. I'm interested to see what you all come up with.